Hi, Jeff Ray here, President CEO, Sappan Regional Chamber. Continuing our candidate conversations today, I'm sitting down today with Mike Castellon. Mike is the current Penn Township Assessor. He's running for St. Joseph County Assessor. We're going to get to know Mike a little bit better today. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, Mike, so let's just start with just a kind of a quick introduction. So if people don't know who Mike Castellon is, tell us a little bit about Mike.
Okay, so born and raised in St. Joseph County. Grew up in a family business, which was Parkway Lanes Bowling Alley for many, many decades here in St. Joe County, mostly in Mishawaka. Right around 20 years of age, I decided that I wanted to explore the world. I joined the United States Navy Seabees, which is part of the Civil Engineering Corps. I spent 20 years with them, and then retired from the Navy, came back to help take over the family business. I'm currently married, together we have 5 kids and 8 grandchildren. And I've been the Penn Township Assessor since the 2010 election.
Great, Mike. So for folks who are not familiar with, obviously you're running for County Assessor. We'll talk about that for a second, but tell us a little bit about the Penn Assessor and what the Penn Assessor does.
So the Penn Township Assessor is similar to the County Assessor. In fact, it's about a quarter of the county, but the responsibilities are similar in nature. And our job is to ensure the fair and equitable assessment of property values across Penn Township, and that includes personal property and real property, from commercial to residential within the township.
Great. Mike, let's talk a little bit, maybe first about, going back a few years, your decision to run for Penn Assessor, or now your decision to run for County Assessor. This is a pretty important function here in local government. It seems like a position that can be unpopular at times, that people don't love the tax person, sometimes. So talk about what inspired you to follow this line of work, run for Penn Assessor, and now run for St. Joe County Assessor.
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly, when I decided to run for the Penn Township Assessor, this wasn't something that I aspired to do. The truth of it was I was taking over the family business, was putting my business perspective together, and I realized the property taxes had quadrupled. So I went down to the local assessor's office, asked them to speak to me about it, and they refused to. And basically what came out of that was, if you don't like it, run for office. So that's really what got me into the office. And then once I got in, I realized that this had been the culture here for many, many years. And I wanted to change that culture, to embrace the taxpayers. And so when this election came up, and Rosemary Mandrici stepped down from the county assessor's position, it left a void of experience across the board. And with 12 years of experience, I felt like I had enough experience that I can go into the county and provide the services and certainly the upper management that would allow us to be successful at the county level.
Great. Mike, talk about, so during your time in Penn Township, what are you most proud of? What have you accomplished there that you'll look back on your time and say, man, I'm glad I was able to do that while I was there?
So actually several things, but I'll just highlight the 2 that I think are really important. One, when I came on board, I had a staff that was really uncertified and was really not functional as an office. So the first thing we sought to do was to look at getting the certifications required by the state of Indiana. I was the very first assessing official in St. Joe County to get their level 3 certification. And now my staff is fully certified across the board. So to give you an idea, there's roughly 7 or 14 actually certified level 3s in the county, 7 being tax reps, and then 5 or 6, 7 of them being in Penn Township. So that gives you an idea of where we're at with education. So education was the first major goal. The second was we became one of the most efficient offices in the state by embracing the taxpayer first, and we did it through education and technology.
Great. Mike, let's talk about the taxpayer a little bit, because I think the assessor's position sometimes is one that a lot of people don't pay a ton of attention to until they get a tax bill that surprises them and see. So can you just talk to us a little bit more about just sort of assessment process, kind of some of the things that you're thinking about taking into mind as you're doing this important task every year of property tax assessments?
So the state really it sets the guidelines for assessors and how they assess, and it's broken down into three categories: mass appraisal, cost approach, and income approach. And so you're really caught in those three categories. But it's up to the local assessor to look in between the gray lines when dealing with property values. So the mass appraisal will set the value through the cost approach, and it's looking at market value and use. And sometimes properties will be overassessed and underassessed. For those properties overassessed, it's really imperative that the assessor sets an appeal process strategy that actually works with the taxpayer one-on-one, so we can look at their property in an independent view to get a better look at what that property is valued at compared to the overall requirement by the state.
Great. So Mike, it feels like in the last year, couple years, the real estate market in particular has gone crazy. Home values have gone up. How is that? How is what's happened in the marketplace, change what happens on the assessment side of things?
Yeah, so being that we're in mass appraisal and we're also market value and use, every time we see a market spike the way that it does over the last 5 years, it impacts the property values drastically across the board, raising the values because the supply is at an all-time low, and so we're seeing values skyrocket. So it's really up to the assessor to make sure that they collect the data, verify that data, to ensure that when we apply market values or trending values, that it's as fair as we can possibly get across the board.
Great. So, Mike, as you're thinking about now, the St. Joseph County Assessor's Office, what should you get elected to that position? What are Mike Castellon's biggest priorities as he moves into that office?
So, starting first, in order to put your priorities in place, you need to understand what's going on in the assessment office itself. So the first thing we want to do is comprehensive audit of the current administration to see where the strong points and the shortfalls are, so that we can put together a correct approach that's fiscally responsible and doesn't put a tax burden on the taxpayer, so we can mitigate some of those issues. The second is to get the staff fully certified, so that we can ensure that they are indeed meeting the state requirements when putting value to property, and then embrace technology, helping us to get to that point. But the number one priority is to embrace the taxpayer first. We work for them, and so we want to make sure that they're getting the fairest assessment as possible.
Great. And Mike, do you have off the top of your head, how many? Again, this is a big job. How many taxpayers, properties, what's the breadth of the responsibility here? You said in Penn Township, you have about a fourth of what the county is. About how many properties are you dealing with in the county each year?
So it's approximately around 118,000 parcels or properties in St. Joe County, making this the fifth biggest county in the state of Indiana. So the impact and the responsibility of the assessment process is huge of in itself. That's why having somebody's experience is imperative to ensuring that we move forward with fair assessments. It also impacts the business community, impacts economic development. So everything that we do is a direct reflection onto our county and certainly the growth and everybody that lives here.
Great. Mike, as I think about the challenges in local government, sometimes even challenges in the marketplace or economy, we've come through this really high wave of good things happening. There's some suggestions that things are going to slow down. As you're looking into your crystal ball, what are some of the biggest challenges that you might have to undertake as assessor over the next couple of years?
Well, yeah, so certainly, we have to open and bridge the communication between the business community with the assessor's office, the realtor and broker communities, and then we want to make sure that we're bridging the communication with the taxpayer, so that we have a full understanding of how the assessment process impacts each one of those entities within our community. And I think that's the first step to being successful. The assessment process is a complicated process, so having those open lines of communication helps us cultivate the data and the impact of the assessment process across the board.
Great. Mike, maybe a little last, getting the last couple questions here. And you talk about this connection with the taxpayer and helping them understand this complicated process and kind of things that you go through to assess, property. Maybe speak to that just for another second about just the communication piece and to what extent you've had success in Penn Township in terms of dealing with this. What would folks in Penn Township say about dealing with you in your office on their tax matters?
Right. So I often hear that every time they come in an office, it's a pleasure. My staff is knowledgeable. So that was the first key, was making sure that my staff had the certifications. They understand every process, the assessment process, so they can relay it to the taxpayer as they come in and ask those questions. The second key to that was opening up lines of communication in a broader spectrum by doing town hall meetings, so that when we had issues like recently with the appeals, we're out in front and getting an idea of where the temperature is in the room with the taxpayers, so we can begin to answer the questions and make sure that we're providing the information to help them file appeals in a more informative manner.
Great. Mike, last question. Folks have a choice to make in November about the St. Joseph County Assessor's position. Tell them why they ought to select Mike Castellon for the next St. Joseph County Assessor.
Right. So St. Joe County is the fifth biggest county in the state of Indiana. Assessing isn't just something that you want to do, it's something that you learn to do and become effective over time. Given the fact that I've been successful for 12 years in Penn Township, we've created that culture I was talking about that embraced the taxpayer first. We've become one of the most efficient offices in the state of Indiana. I want to bring that to the county, and I want to open the doors to fair assessment across the board. Nothing says that assessments are fair than looking right into the city of Mishawaka and watching economic development boom in Mishawaka, and that helps everybody across the board. And so I hope to bring that to the county level and bring back the faith into the taxpayers.
Great. He's Mike Castellon. He's the current Penn Township Assessor and candidate for St. Joseph County Assessor. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.